Right. Hello, I'm Tom Daniel. I'm a transformation delivery specialist. I'm delighted to be here today to discuss Pareto Project Management. What I'm going to quickly do is start sharing my screen, but if you haven't heard already, invite you to put in the chat where you're dialing in today, anywhere interesting, if it's late at night, early in the morning, where you lovely people are all around the world. So let me just share my screen.
I can see people joining us from England, Charlotte, Côte d'Ivoire, South Africa. Alex is in Wales, which is great to see people joining from different parts of the world. Where else? Do we have any other country represented? I can see Trinidad and Tobago now, UAE, really, really great. Nigeria. Thanks, guys, for sharing. Toby's in Scotland. Amazing.
Cool. All right, well, listen, it's 4 minutes past, so want to recognise the people who've got here now. So let's make a start. So yeah, Tom Daniel, here to talk about a new course offering. As I said, I'm a transformation delivery specialist. I deliver projects, programs, and portfolios all around the world across industry, but I'm also a trainer. I love training. I love training in person. I've obviously, with the pandemic, had to learn to train virtually, which is okay, but love training, and this virtual training is sort of generally the way things go now as we follow the sun around the world. So what am I covering today? Introducing the approach or methodology, and particularly some of the what, why, and that take place during different phases of a project: starting a project, project managing, delivery, and closing a project. And then I'm going to spend a bit of time, because I know you want to come here to learn something rather than just hear about the course, is go into a little bit of about an optimal project team, and there'll be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'll move on. So Pareto, and some phrases you'll hear me use quite a lot during today, possibly, but certainly if you join the course. So Pareto, it's something that Joseph Juran came up in 1941, having read the work of Vilfredo Pareto, who was an Italian economist, and basically the Pareto principle is, for many outcomes, roughly 80% of the consequences come from 20% of the causes, and that was particularly in quality control, but it also works in a reverse way, that actually if you do stuff, you get 80% of the result. So the other name for the principle is the 80-20 rule, or the vital few and the useful many, because Juran moved away from just focusing on the vital few, just saying, be aware that the useful many may come into play at some point. So what is Pareto Project Management course for project finance professionals? So it's trying to focus, it is focusing on the 20% of project management that allows you to get the 80% of the results. There is so much on project and program management since it's been sort of going for the last 70 years. Where do you start? There is just so much to wade through. And so what I've done is over the years worked with various people to distill the sort of 20% that gets the 80% of the results. And then you can look around and say, well, do I need to do that last bit? What's the value there, or is it enough? Don't discount it, but you do need to consider that. You'll hear me use the word intelligent application. Now, you're finance professionals. I'm a project management person. I've always thought the finance people had the intelligence, and I know that you'll have the intelligence to work out what to apply and what not to. What happens is a lot of people go on these courses, they learn everything, and they try and apply everything, and everything slows down. What it needs is a little bit of intelligence, which I know you'll all bring, to discern, what is going to bring the value. And that brings me on to something else, which is the Goldilocks principle. I've always wanted to include a picture like that in the presentation, but this is, based on the children's story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, where Goldilocks breaks into a house, finds some porridge that some's too hot and some too cold, and then goes for the bit that's just right. And that's what intelligent application is working out what one needs, the sort of just right amount to get the benefits that you want to get. So let's start at the very beginning. Very good place to start, as the song says. What's a project? So project's a temporary organisation that exists for a limited period of time, and it'll deliver one or more outputs. And it should have a business case that underpins the benefits. It could be part of a program, but we're going to focus on projects here. But programs, they deal with outcomes, projects deal with outputs. And project management is the starting, planning, execution, and monitoring and control of closing and all aspects of the projects and the motivation of those involved. Importantly, focused on what's called the iron triangle, or the project management triangle, of time, cost, and quality. Now, this triangle is called the iron triangle because it can't be broken. You can unbalance it, but it cannot be broken. If you run out of time in a project, your quality will probably deteriorate. If you go over time, your costs will increase. It's that sort of balance of the iron triangle, that if it gets out of balance, a project can be seen to have failed, and if you keep it in balance, that it will succeed. A couple of other areas that are very important in projects is scope. Scope is, what we're trying to do here. What is the project about? Let's have a think about that. If you're building a wind farm with 30 units on one site, that's one thing. But if you're building 100 units over 2 sites, then that's a different scope, and there's going to be different costs. It's going to take a different amount of time. Hopefully quality will stay as it should be. The other aspect, and I'll just move to the left there, is risk. Okay, so risk is a key. Risk and risk management is a key part of project management. You don't want to make an industry of it. You need the Goldilocks amount, but you need to bear in mind risk and manage risk, because the people who don't think about the risks to their project are the ones who always get caught out. And finally, hopefully you're seeing that, is benefits. There's no point doing a project unless it's going to deliver benefits. Ideally they should be quantifiable and financial, but there can be non-quantifiable and non-financial ones which can't be ignored. So that is the basic introduction to what a project is. I'm getting on to what types of projects there are, and there are many different types. What I've done there is put icons for the type of projects that people in the Project Finance Institute are generally involved in. I understand long-term, contracted, predicted income streams. We've got the wind farm, we've got the toll bridge, the solar farm. What I'd invite you to do, and I'm just going to go on to the next one, is if you've got any other particular projects or project types that are not covered in this list, I'd invite you to just put them into chat. I'd be interested to see if we've got anything radically different. But what we're sort of saying is that there are many types of projects, there are many categories of projects, and that creates challenges about teaching, or training in how to project manage. And there are many different project methodologies. I've trained in most of them, and a little bit about them. They're all owned by different professional bodies, and they don't want to align. They're not incentivized to align. You'd need a glossary to understand all the different terms they use for different things. I've even played the game there. Glossary, thesaurus, and lexicon, they all mean the same sort of thing. But yeah, it's really confusing. And one of the things the project, the course will bring is a sort of glossary to help understand what different methodologies call the same thing. They don't encourage the use of others. They've got varied recognition, and there's they're a major commitment in terms of effort and cost. And most, especially the most recognized ones, they seem to move in the direction of competing to become more and more complex. And in the spirit of Pareto, that doesn't help with intelligent application or the Goldilocks principle. And that's where Pareto, or this approach, comes in, of focusing on what really matters and what makes the difference. One example here I'm using is the project life cycle. It's a key approach to the delivery of projects. It allows everybody on the project to understand what phase they're in. Everyone knows what they're doing with with specific focus for the phase they're in. And this is a typical life cycle of a project, vanilla one I'd call it. But having done that, for some people, they may only be involved in the beginning of the project. So is the pre-bid development, is that a project to them? Or they may go a bit further, or they certainly a construction project. That is a project in itself. Hopefully, operations aren't a project, because as we sort of mentioned, a project is a for a fixed period, whereas operations is more continuous. And you can even have the termination or decommissioning as a project. So what I'm just trying to emphasize here is, no project's the same. Project life cycles, and if you take a look at it here, vary massively between the different projects that we will deliver. Again, that creates a challenge on how to deliver. I did a bit of research here. I delivered a high-speed network at Virgin Media O2 last year or the year before. Those were the phases we had, but they're very different for the different types of projects, which makes it confusing. So what I've aimed to do is bring out the fact that we have some major processes that go on during the life cycle of a project: starting, planning, project managing, delivery, execution and control, and closing the project. And we need to sort of learn about them all in order to apply them at the different times during the life cycle. And that leads me to, if you see the same colors here, a series of modules in the Pareto project management approach or methodology, where we will focus on execution control, starting, project managing, and closing a project, and indeed planning the whole thing. Taking away those garish colors, you'll see that there are 5 key processes taught in 6 key modules, because execution and control, there's a lot to cover in that area. And whilst they're not phases and they don't define the project life cycle, they can all occur all the way throughout the life of the project. And they're valid because you can, at all levels of the work breakdown structure, because you can plan the whole project, or you can plan a phase, or you can plan an activity. So understanding those processes of how to plan, for example, will be used at multiple times during the life cycle of a project. So let's have a look. So I said I was going to sort of look at some of the things that fall into starting, project managing, delivering, and closing a project. I will canter through these because at the end of this webinar, you can express your interest, and we've got a full course brochure which covers all the details. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, because I want to get onto the optimal project team. But I do want to give you a little bit of a flavour. So in starting a project, what are the sort of things that one needs to consider? Well, the first thing is the project team. More of that later, so I won't waste any further time. Then there's the who does what. It's a responsibility matrix. I don't know if you've come across these. RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Very useful tool. One of the things that we'll go into quite a bit of detail once you've got your project team, who's doing what, and who needs to be consulted or informed. We talked about scope. Scope, extremely important. You can come unstuck in your project if you get scope creep, or you don't understand your scope from the start. And I'll be introducing you to MOSCO, must, should, could, or would, which is a very well recognized method for dealing with your scope. So everybody in the project team and all the wider stakeholders agree what is going to be done and what won't be done. Next, moving on to a project charter. So this works on the basis that if you can't write down coherently what you're going to do, you're unlikely to be able to deliver it. So every project needs to write down what the project's about. Some people call this a project initiation document. For here, we're going to call it a project charter, but this is what we're going to do. This is who's going to do it. There'll be further stuff added with plans, but it sets out at the start of the project what the project's about. Excuse me. There'll be procurement and contracting. That's an important component. You'll all be familiar with RFIs and RFPs, the responses, the assessment, preferred bidder, etc., etc. So we'll cover those aspects at starting a project. And then another key tool that is certainly now a norm in the industry is RAID, risks, assumptions, issues, and decisions. We'll be covering how to deal with those, what to focus on, what can catch you out. I move now on to project managing delivery. Some of the areas that we covered in this module are going to be, the cadence in terms of reference. Cadence is the heartbeat of the project. It's the pulse, and within that there will be series of meetings, be they weekly, be they monthly, be they quarterly, be they annually, during the lifetime of the project. And the terms of reference is everybody being clear about what they need to do, and to okay. Let's just seeing some comments there. Yeah, and confirming everybody knows what they're meant to be doing, and to be prepared and follow up thereafter. Some very, very basic tools coming next, but often forgotten, often catch people out around contacts, availability, forecasts. I've been on so many projects where they've either been caught out or nearly caught out. I'd like to say I've stopped them being caught out by these basic bits of hygiene, where key people are not available to deliver. I'll talk about project team delivery during project management, and quite often that's encapsulated in the project playbook. We'll discuss what those look like and what should be included. I talked about scope management. You identify your scope at the start, and then you need to manage it, because you can get scope creep, you can get trade-offs that need to be made. So scope management is a key piece. Lessons log and processes. As you start a process, you learn, and it's important to learn as you go, and also to take those learnings into future projects. So that's a key thing that's often forgotten. We'll also be talking about stakeholders and communications. They're absolutely key in a project that impacts anybody, and it's odd to think of any project that doesn't impact other stakeholders outside the project team. So they need to be considered, and they need to be communicated with, with different messages at different times in a controlled, managed, and efficient way. And then finally, in project managed delivery, escalations process. What you don't want to be doing is working out the escalation process when there's a problem. It's useful to establish what the escalation processes are, so that they can be turned to when you need to. I'll move on, and we're nearly finished this canter through. As I said, I'm sorry I'm going fast, but it'll all be in the brochure. There'll be more in the modules, but I just wanted to give you a flavour of it so you knew what sort of things we were going to be covering. So as you close a project, what do you need to be thinking about? Enterprise readiness and handover. I use the word enterprise quite often because a lot of people use the word business, but not everybody works in a business. Sometimes you're working in the public sector for government, so enterprise, generic term, but business is quite often used interchangeably. But you need to be sure that the business or the enterprise is ready to receive the outputs of the project and execute a handover, which includes actually transitioning the product outputs to whoever's going to hold them when the project is finished. Adoptions and benefits realization. We talked earlier about how it's no point delivering a project unless there are going to be benefits, and those benefits need to be realized, and they will only be realized if they're adopted. Quite often you find that in big system delivery, where people will spend a lot of money delivering a new system into an enterprise, and then it's done badly, poor stakeholder management, poor change management, maybe even poor design. And the product at the end of the project is not adopted, and the benefits are not realized. We talked about lessons, learning them during the lifetime of the project, but also key at project close. That's where the project team need to gather the lessons, act on any ones that are necessary, maybe feed them into the enterprise so other projects benefit from that learning. Further to that, I'm going to have a quick drink. Sorry, apologies, talking too much. When you close a project, you want to do an assessment. Okay, not just the benefits have been delivered, but the overall return on investment related to the total cost of ownership of whatever has been delivered. So that is a key part of a project close. And then finally, archiving and celebrating success. So, as I said, a sort of whistle-stop tour of some of the many areas that will be covered in the course. Not exhaustive, there'll be plenty more, but I just wanted to share with you some of the content that will be available. All right, let's move on now. I think we're probably a little bit ahead of time, but then that allows plenty of time for Q&A, and I can slow down a bit. So here we have the project team. We're going to talk about the optimal project team, and it's important to realize, this is Pareto. You may be working on projects that don't have an optimal project team. Not every organization has either the resources or the appetite to have all the roles fulfilled in a project team. But if you understand the optimal project team and you're short of people, you can make sure that you're covering the various sort of concepts and interests to allow you to succeed. And I've certainly worked with in many very small project teams that have been successful. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you was about customer and supplier environments, and the customer. So the customer specifies what the project is going to produce. It then makes use of what the project produces, and it probably pays for the project. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with that. Think about who the customer is in the projects you work on. There may be more than one customer. Then you have suppliers. Okay, they provide the resources and skills to complete the project. And what you've got to do is strike the right balance in the representation of your project team, that both the customers and the suppliers are satisfied at the end. Talk a bit more about that, because they have different interests and they have different circumstances as well. So the user, they're going to use the final product, be it the wind farm, be it the nuclear power plant, be it the road. And the user could be the people in the cars on the road, or it could be the organization that owns the road. But it's who ends up with the final product when the project team is gone. They'll be impacted by the outcome, if it's good or bad, and you can read into it. They end up holding it. You'll be familiar with that expression. When everybody's gone home, they're the people that are left with the product at the end of the project, be it good or bad. And then you've got the supplier. Okay, and the supplier is who provides the skills and expertise to deliver. Now that supplier could be part of the enterprise that ends up with the project. So if I look at it, I was recently working at a large a globally known broadcasting company, where they were putting a new system for recruiting and onboarding. So there, the user was going to be the broadcasting company, whereas the supplier could have been from the broadcasting company with their own IT group, but they'd actually decided to bring in some externals to deliver the project. So you can see that sometimes the supplier may be internal and remains, or sometimes the supplier may be external and depart. So they do pretty much align with the customer and the supplier, but there's one other group to consider, which is the enterprise or the business. The enterprise or business could have multiple projects, and they are looking for the project to deliver a business need. Maybe it's a power station to provide electricity, or it's a bridge to allow transport, but they're looking overall for value for money. And they may have multiple projects, and they may need to make trade-offs between different projects. So I just wanted to give you that concept before we get into some of the different parts of the optimal project team, because we do need to make sure that all those different interests are represented by the team in various ways. So here we are with the project team. I think the next one shows, I'm not going to go through them all because this is Pareto, so we're not going to cover everything, and not every project will have everything, but I'm going to go through the absolute, the key project members. And let's start off with the project board. this team looks big. It's important to say that they're not all working full time. Yeah, I'd imagine most project managers are working full time on their projects. They may be working on more than one project. That can sometimes happen. Usually need to be fairly small, can create problems. But many of these people, in assurance, for example, or the other people we're going to discuss in the project board, they could be working across multiple projects, and that's perfectly okay, perfectly legitimate. But I just want to talk about the project board. So the project board, it's also known as the steering group or the steering committee. All those different names for the same thing I discussed. But they must have the authority to make decisions. So the project manager, which we'll come to later, is actually managing the project. But quite often important decisions need to be made during the lifetime of the project. And what you need is a project board that is set up and has the right constituents in order to make those decisions in a timely manner. They manage by exception, so they're not involved in everything. It's where it's a decision, where there's an issue, where there's a risk, then they need to be informed in the appropriate manner. And they do need to represent, we discussed, and that leads, goes back to the previous slide that we just discussed, the enterprise, the users and the suppliers. And we'll go into those in some more detail. It's best that they're an individual assigned for the lifetime of a project. I know people come and go and leave, but it's nice to try and avoid that if possible. They're accountable for the success of the project, overall direction and management, and they are the project voice to the outside world. Any project impacts stakeholders, and it's useful to have some senior people who are out there talking in the enterprise about what is being delivered. It's not a democracy either. The project board can make decisions, but ultimately, dependent on the terms of reference, the project executive has the final say. Moving on then. The project executive, ultimately accountable. Let's see if I can move myself. That's a bit better. Ultimately accountable for the project, usually quite a senior individual, and they oversee the development of a viable business case and make sure the project sticks to it and delivers it. They need to ensure there's a coherent organization and structure and logical plan. So part of the project executive will be appointing the project manager and helping the project manager put all these people in place as well as the rest of the project. And basically, as part of the project board, he or she monitors and controls progress of the business change. Also helps with serious problems and refers them upwards and formally closes the project. Okay, we discussed having a lead user. Now, some people call it a senior user or user lead, but it's somebody representing the users. Again, a senior person. They may be actually delivering some parts of the project as a user, but they are representing all the users that are going to end up with the product at the end. So represent says who will use the final product, achieve an objective for delivery of the product, use end-to-end results to deliver benefits, and they will be they're representing the people who will be impacted by the project outcome. So remember that previous slide needs to represent the users of what is going to be delivered. And now I go on to the lead supplier or senior supplier, some people call it. Accountable for the quality of the products delivered by the suppliers, represents the interests of the supply chain, ensures the proposals for designing and developing product are realistic. And you can see this group, as things arise during the lifetime of the project, they would be meeting generally monthly in most projects. It could be less often. Sometimes when there's a crisis, it could be weekly or even more often. I've certainly seen that happen when something needs turning around. But they are making sure that the project manager and the project team are delivering to the benefit of the user, the suppliers, and the overall enterprise. Also, I suppose I discussed earlier about escalation processes. They'll play a pretty key part in the escalation processes. So the project manager, I don't know, if anybody's a project manager on the call, it'd be great if you let us know. I'd just be interested to hear if there are any project managers, or if you are more just working in or around projects. So please do feel free to let us know. Tia, it's very silent here. Can I just check that I always worry about lines dropping. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Good. Thank
Oh,
you.
good.
Good. Because the weather's been really bad here, so I'm sort of worried about things dropping. Okay, so the project manager, generally full-time, not always. I've seen people managing 2 or 3 small projects before. It's quite a challenge, but manages the project on a day-to-day basis, and they're responsible for ensuring the project produces required products to quality, to time and cost. They are the conductor, I suppose, is the way I would describe it. And it's a key role. It's a skill in the way that you are finance professionals. Generally, they've done quite a lot of training. I certainly started off with not much training. It is doable, but people do tend to invest in it as a career. So the project manager manages the team, whereas the project board manages by exception, the project manager manages everything. And they normally come from the customer organization. Okay, 34 minutes past. I'll keep moving. I want to get on to Q&A and some other stuff. Okay, team managers. These are the people who are actually delivering the project work for the project manager. They can be separate people, or they can be one person in the case of a small project, and they produce the products. And you can imagine in any project, or some of the projects we're talking about here, they could be construction, they could be transport, delivering wind turbines, they could be a change management work stream that is helping deliver the change into the enterprise as the project delivers. So I've given some examples on the left: IT, technology, real estate, construction, change management and comms, marketing, legal, procurement. Project assurance. In the way, you have a number of layers of control and quality. The project manager should be working to quality. The project board should be looking for quality. But they are inherently part of the project. Assurance is getting somebody externally who monitors all aspects of the project's performance and products independently of the project manager. And assurance, that could be light touch, just checking that certain deliverables are produced, or it could be very invasive. It could be a knock at the door, coming to crawl all over your project. Typically, assurance is part of the enterprise, and they cover multiple projects, and they also have the sort of collective learning of the enterprise, able to spot where things are going astray, and a sort of a long-term collective memory, which may not necessarily exist amongst the project board or the project manager. It's the collective knowledge. And finally, I'm going on to project support, which is maybe where many of you may be working. I call it project support. Sometimes it's a project management office. It is the people who are not delivering actual product to the project manager, but actually are supporting in the running of the project. And they can be planners, change and comms, project finance specialists. I delivered a cybersecurity program at the British Meteorological Office during COVID. Had an absolutely fabulous project finance specialist who helped me with all the finances on the project, and then also was the benefits manager, which is absolutely key. And I imagine some of you may be doing that, or you maybe have other financial focus. If it's a big project, I imagine a nuclear power plant would have a risk manager. You'll have resource managers, business analysts, procurement. So there you are with an example. So before I go on to that, I just want to sort of emphasize again, what I've talked to you is about an optimal project team. It's large. Not every project will have that many. They're not all full-time roles. But if you're aware of what an optimal project team looks like and should be covering, the bases it should be covering, then with a smaller project team, you can bear in mind, the different interests, the different motivations, the different representations that you would have in an optimal project team, and you can work out how you cover all those bases. All right, I think we're on track, because I'm now going to move on to a little bit about the course, a little bit more about the course before we go into Q&A, which is a chance for you to turn on your cameras if you want, or ask more questions in chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. So the Pareto Project Management course for finance professionals, it's 8 sessions. They're 90 minutes. They will give it a 5-minute break, so I realize that if possible, 90 minutes is a long time. And each exercise is gonna involve a relevant exercise based on a case study, to get that interaction, to get that opportunity to use what you're learning. It actually embeds the learning much more cleanly, and you take away further sort of skills, competency. Yeah, and we'll have questions throughout, or we can do it at the end. But I just want, so the areas you'll see is I'll introduce to project management and set the scene. I've covered session 2 already. It'll be starting a project, setting up for success. Plans and scheduling is one session in itself, just because there's a lot to cover. It's a really key part of project management, and it doesn't come, well, it's not covered in the same way in other professional disciplines, so it's really worth investing that time. Project managing delivery, we discussed the sort of components of that. There will be more, but I've given you a flavor of that today. Then execution and control is actually 5 and 6. They're all execution and control, but it's too much to cover in one session. So execution and control, managing change and quality and financial management is all that sort of execution and control of the project itself. We've covered closing a project, and then the final session is bringing it all together. And I forgot to say, yeah, Ollie, I think, or Tia, somebody's going to put in the chat the opportunity for people to a link for where you can register your interest in this course.
That's right. Yes, thank you, Tom. I've just posted the link in the chat. So if the course does strike an interest, if you're a project, you are a project management professional, then you're able to register your interest completely for free, no cost obligation. Just follow that link there. It just takes 30 seconds to complete that form. But equally, we will send out the form with the recording of this session to everyone as soon as the recording's processed after this session is finished. But you can do that right now through the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to say that. So yeah, that's that. But so express your interest, and with that, a brochure will be sent out, Ollie, at some point, which covers all this in much more detail.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Which includes the pricing. Yeah, I should have said that at the start of this. But yeah, please, we're going to have a chance in Q&A to discuss things. But if there's anything you think is you'd like me to emphasize in the course. I mean, the course is written. I've been delivering it in different guises for a number of years with successful outcomes. But there's always the scope to nuance it. So if somebody's interested in a particular aspect, I can make sure I cover that in a little bit more detail, or there may be avenues for me to include some extra stuff if it's not covered in what you see when you read the brochure. So let's be agile about that. So going back, we covered the 7th session was closing a project, and then the final session we bring it all together and what other methodologies don't tell you, which is where I can give give you some of the benefits of my 30 years of experience. There will be a course assessment. I think that's always good for focusing on the mind. It always makes a qualification more meaningful to the outside world. So yeah, there'll be a course assessment at the end and a certificate will be issued. So I make that 16:43. So I think I'm 2 minutes ahead of schedule, which is good. I'm sorry I've gone fast. I didn't want to overrun, and I want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions. So I think Tia, we're going to say, you know, welcome people to either put things in chat if there are any questions,
yep,
or feel free to turn on, you know, if you feel brave, put on your camera and ask a question, because I think people have got the ability to talk, haven't they?
Yes, so everybody should be able to unmute themselves, turn on their cameras. You guys are welcome to raise your hand and just, yes, join the conversation. If you have questions that you prefer to leave in the chat, you are welcome to do that as well, and Tom should be able to answer them.
I'm keeping an eye on them. Very
right. We also had a question, a message come in the chat earlier from Sean, who said that he's project managing power plant control system upgrades at the moment.
Okay. So all right. So the okay, I can see absolutely a very important part within a project of the project itself is actually is managing the upgrades. Yeah, I can imagine. And how long's that been going on for, Sean? Is that a long project?
Yeah, it's about 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a project in a project, isn't it? Because you know, it's the lifetime of the whole plant, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing is we build these big things over years, and then, you know, during their lifetime, you know, there are upgrades, there's enhancements, there's changes that need to be made, and that can fuel projects in their own right. And you know, clearly that all needs to be costed into the, you know, the original costing, the models, and maintained in the business case. So you know, the lifetime of the project means that it's a positive return on investment.
We had one question, Tom, a little earlier about your slides, and if you are able to share this with everybody, we can just add them under the recording so people get a reference.
Well, let me just check on that, Tia, if that's okay.
Of course, yep.
I've got to work that one out.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but I mean, obviously the slides are going to be available in the recording, so let's take a rain check on that one.
Cool. Sounds good. I'm not sure if you can see.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just come in.
Yeah, we'll look at scheduling. Scheduling and the word planning are quite often used interchangeably, but a plan is not a Gantt chart. But yeah, we'll be looking at scheduling for a whole 90 minutes, and I'll note that down. Bridget, and I'll include that definitely if you join the course. Scheduling is a major part of project management. When things happen, you know, and the plan, who's doing it, etc., etc. Interdependencies, planned, forecast, and actuals in planning as well as in financial work. Any more questions? Okay. So I think should we I'm not seeing any more questions. I am part of the community, so I'd be delighted. You know, I am on the you know, PFI chat. So if you want to reach out to me, I'd delighted to engage with you if you want to know more about the course. Because it looks like we're not getting a whole load of questions now. So what I might do, Tia, and Alex, should we just go on to pricing quickly?
You want to go through that?
Yeah.
Tom, yep.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the first course is due to run at 1 o'clock on the 13th of September. 1300 hours. You can tell I was in the army once. And you can, there's a super early bird, and a general window, like all the PFI courses. So an opportunity if you're interested to sign up and early and save some dollars. And I think that, that'll all be included in the brochure. So please put, click on the register your interest. You'll get the brochure and the opportunity to sign up. I'm just seeing, so from Claire, covering tooling such as MS Project, etc. I'm going to touch on the tools available. There are so many, Claire, that an MS Project is learning how to do it is a career in itself for a project planner. But we will cover what sort of things are available. I definitely intend to cover that. That is one sort of industry standard, quite light touch. I suspect some of some of those working in big construction projects are using more advanced construction project management or planning tools. But we'll certainly touch on the main ones that are available in the market, and then maybe people can share with other ones they're using. Because part of this course is you're engaging with a group of people, your peers, so we can all learn from each other, build your network, and we can hear what other people are using. We are on the shoulders of giants. Nice to learn. Any more questions? Okay, I think Tia, is there anything else we need to cover?
Nothing else from my side. We will be publishing the recording within the next 24 hours on the community. We'll also send a message out to everybody who has RSVP'd. So in case you guys have joined this call but haven't RSVP'd on the platform, please go ahead and do that so you can receive our follow-up message. And we will include that register your interest link, a few more details, and we'll send you a link to the recording as well. So that's everything from my side. Ollie, was there anything else you wanted to add from yours?
No, nothing from me, aside from just keep an eye out on your emails for announcements when the course is about to be available for purchase. You'll be the first to hear about it when you register your interest.
Perfect.
Thank you, of course, everyone, very much for your time today. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Tom.
Thank you, guys.
walking
Thank
us
you for
through
joining.
the project approach.
Thank you, Tom, for the presentation. This was really great. And we will see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Very insightful.
Bye.